are here with Zach Payne, and you are the incumbent state representative for District 66, running for re-election. What are your best qualifications and experience for the position?
I am very skeptical. I do not trust government, any levels, any government around the world. I hate to say experience is a good qualification, but I do know the process a whole lot better than I did in 2020, and a lot better than somebody who's never been there before. But in general, I don't trust government, and I don't think government is the right answer in literally anything. I would like to remove government from everything in our lives.
What's your primary motivation for running for re-election?
I don't trust government, and I want to get government out of your life. I want to get government out of all of our lives. Honestly, like right now, so I first got involved in politics. I started going in 2010 to the Clark County Tea Party meetings, and back then I was frustrated with government, and I thought that all the problems that we were facing were due to incompetence. But it's very obvious now that we are in a war, and it's not incompetence. There are really smart people at the top making things happen that are affecting us all and will affect us for generations, and that's really scary. So I'm running for re-election, not because I think I'm going to be able to defeat George Soros in the Indiana State House, but I do my part.
Do you think that you have committed yourself to full transparency to your constituents, and what does full transparency look like to you as a state rep?
I'll answer the phone, and I'm not hiding anything from anybody. So, yeah. So yes, I do think I've committed to full transparency.
Okay. Who are some of your top campaign contributors?
To be honest, the establishment. Back in 2020, I was running against a 20-year Democrat incumbent, and I got over $200,000 from the Indianapolis establishment because they wanted me to knock out he was the minority leader at that point and wanted me to knock him out, so yeah.
Have you ever given a campaign contribution back? And if so, why? Just generally, we don't need specifics.
I received a campaign contribution this year, although it's not illegal in a non-budget year, and this is a non-budget year. Not illegal to receive campaign contributions from lobbyists during non-budget year sessions, but I received one this year and I returned it just because I think it looks bad, like the lobbyist is trying to influence me during session. So that's the only time, and it was literally like 2 weeks ago.
How do you currently ensure the public gets the opportunity to express their desires on a particular topic or bill? How will you communicate with those you represent?
I'm on social media, first and foremost. Secondly, people seem to know that they can contact the office and express their opinions because they do. Yeah.
What regulations, ordinances, or laws do you want to repeal, add, or alter as your first order of business if reelected?
I would love to get rid of the red flag laws. I would love to decriminalize cannabis. Yeah, we'll stick with those two. I could go down a list, but we'll stick with those two.
What's your position on property tax relief, particularly for the elderly and disabled on a fixed income?
I would love to eliminate property taxes on people over a certain age, maybe 65. I co-authored a bill that did that this year. It didn't make it very far, but the concept at least influenced another bill. We raised the tax deduction on people over 65 from $200,000 of property taxes, or for property value, up to $240,000. So we gave them a little bit of relief, but wish we would have done a lot more.
Along those same lines, how do you feel about ever-increasing property taxes for homeowners at the same time the government is awarding tax abatements for businesses and developers? What will you do at a legislative level in that area?
That's a can of worms, isn't it? I don't like that we rent our property from the government for our entire lives. I've authored 2 sessions in a row a bill that would make it so that property assessments cannot increase beyond a 5% per year. You know, they've been going up double digits over the past couple of years, so it would cap it at 5%. Not that's not a full answer. You know, that doesn't solve it completely, but I believe in free market capitalism, and tax abatements to the picking winners and losers with tax abatements is not free market capitalism.
What's your position on border control, and what role do you think Indiana should play in securing our borders, if any?
Dare I speak positively of the governor? I mean, I'm so happy that Eric Holcomb sent the troops down to the border to help in Texas. I signed my name to a letter that legislators sent him encouraging him to do it, and a few days later he did. You know, I'm sure he was already planning to do it. I'm not going to take credit for that, but I'm glad he did. You know, whatever we can do, I'd support it.
Do you think our elections, particularly the machines and other internet-connected equipment, are secure, free, and equal? If not, what actions will you take to secure our elections during your next term in office?
It's a tough question, because it's a fight that can't ever stop. We can't say, well, it's secure, we're done, because it never will be. There will always be people who would like to get that advantage. Just like if we have a 100% paper ballot system where we hand counted everything, we would have problems. Absolutely would. It would be easier to just throw ballots in the mix and for people to purposely miscount as they're counting. There will always be problems, and we always need to be trying to secure things as much as possible. So I would support measures to further secure, or to go a different route completely if we have to.
And do you support a return to paper ballots hand counted?
I don't know. To be honest, I know what your all's position is, and I'm not quite there yet. And I don't know. I'm not quite there, because there's so much human error, and that's being generous saying human error. People can miscount on purpose, so I don't know what the right answer is.
Have you familiarized yourself with globalist agendas such as the World Economic Forum's Agenda 2030, and what will you do to preserve America First initiatives?
Yes, and we have to stand for our state sovereignty, because we don't have people at the federal level standing up for our country's sovereignty. So whatever we can do to push back against that on a state level, I support that.
The recent push for solar farms threatens land that is uniquely rich for crops and livestock, with energy outputs far inferior to other sources such as coal, natural gas, and oil. What's your position on industrial solar farms taking thousands of acres of prime farmland out of production for decades, possibly forever, in Indiana's 9th District? I
think there's a big difference between a farmer deciding that they're going to invest in solar technology on their farm. There's a big difference between that and some progressive company out of California taking our farmland, whose money might actually be coming from a foreign nation. So I think that there's a big distinction there, and we have to do what we can to fight back against the latter, or of the two situations. But if a farmer wants to do what wants to invest the money, I don't think we have the right to tell them not to. But if they're just leasing it out to some progressive company, I don't support that.
And currently, the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, funded by billions in tax dollars, is planning 11 business deals with Chinese companies worth an estimated $14.4 billion. The IEDC uses code names to shroud these companies in secrecy until deals are completed. Both the state Senate and House are to vote on a bill limiting foreign ownership of Hoosiers land. I'm not sure if it came to a vote yesterday. If so, what was your position, or what will be your position?
It did come to a vote, and I voted for it, and it passed. The problem is, like, right after we voted on it, I started talking to other legislators, and there are still so many ways that they can make it happen. Just by having an agent who is a Hoosier buy the land on their behalf and whatnot. So there are going to be holes in it that we have to plug over the next session or two. But I voted for it, and it's a step in a surprisingly good step in the right direction.
If Indiana finds itself in another situation of government overreach, like we experienced during the COVID pandemic, where the people have their most basic freedoms and constitutional rights threatened, and separation of powers are not being honored, what immediate actions will you take to protect your constituents?
If we're in that situation again, I would author a resolution to end it. A lot of people, when they hear a resolution, a resolution doesn't have any teeth. But in Indiana, a resolution does have teeth. If we author a resolution and it goes to the House floor and it's passed to end the state of emergency, if there's a state of emergency declared, then it will end the state of emergency on passage, not signed by the governor or anything like that. So I think that would be our best route. We just have to have a majority, or we have to have enough people calling and beating on the doors of their state reps and state senators to put the pressure on them and inflict political pain to get them to do it, to vote for it.
Mm-hmm. What's your current understanding of human trafficking in southern Indiana, and what actions, if any, have you taken or plan to take to combat human trafficking?
Honestly, I'm not a politician who will ever tell you that I know everything. I'm not the smartest person on earth, and I'm not Google. I don't have a Google amount of information. I don't know enough about that issue. So if one of you all want to talk to me about it, I would be happy to listen.
Okay, thank you. Here locally, former Sheriff Jamie Knoll is accused of, not found guilty, but charged with some pretty serious crimes against taxpayers, buying and selling cars and other expensive equipment for his own personal gain, using poorly supervised jail commissary funds to pay for unauthorized items, other crimes committed by finding loopholes in government systems and processes. Do you have any ideas about what laws could be put in place to prevent similar crimes from happening again?
The commissary, I don't know the intricacies of how the law has been manipulated to make that happen. So I can't say with certainty what should be done, but obviously a lot more oversight. There needs to be a lot more oversight, whether that be a monthly review by a committee of expenditures of the commissary, or from what I've heard from a lot of people, not just sheriffs around the state, but like the commissary fund needs to be there, and they need to be able to spend the money without getting approval for every single expenditure. But there has to be, maybe it makes sense to have if it's $5,000 or more, then it has to go before the commissioners, like every other department, or something like that. But there's a solution there. We just got to figure out what it is.
We've discovered that there are laws that require government departments to complete certain fiscal reports, but they don't have repercussions for compliance failures. Would you support legislation that adds repercussions to laws on fiscal report and budget requirements if they are not followed?
Yeah. That makes sense to me. We just passed, I think it may have actually died along the way this year, but some cities, I know this is different than financial reports, but some cities and counties around the state, you're supposed to redistrict every 10 years, and the smallest district of a city council district or county council is supposed to be no smaller than 10% fewer votes than the largest district. But so many cities and counties around the state, I don't know if I explained that correctly, but so many cities and counties around the state haven't actually changed their district lines in like 40 years. They've just reaffirmed the same lines over and over and over again. So like Anderson, Indiana, the smallest district is 45% smaller by population than the largest district. We passed a bill, I think out of the House, but it may have died in the Senate this year, that said that if they don't fix it by X date this year, that the city councilman will not be paid until they do fix it. And I think that that's a really good motivator for exactly what you're talking about.
What has been your current communication with the Clark County and District 9 chairman, if any? How would you describe your relationship with the Clark County and 9th District Central Committee? And do you think that you have their support as a candidate?
Ron and I, I've known Ron since 2010 probably. We probably speak a couple times a year maybe, but now that he's chairman, I assume that will be a lot more often. Amanda Lowry's the 9th District Chair, and prior to her becoming chair, we've spoken a few times, just at like Lincoln Days and stuff. But I've been in communication with her more frequently since she's become chair, and I believe I probably have their support. Yeah.
Okay. What other issues are important to you that we didn't cover?
I want to protect life, and we went pretty far. We're arguably the best pro-life legislation in the country, but it can be more tightened more. And I just want to reduce the size of government in general, in all ways. I mean, our budget expands and expands and expands every year so much that we've got to do something to rein it in. School choice is really important to me. We need to have options for our students and families, that not just the progressive public school system, the government indoctrination system that we have. So, I mean, I serve on education and elections and environmental, and I feel that I'm doing my best work in education because we are expanding school choice and giving those options to families.
I think that was my next question. What committees do you serve on, and do you hold ranking positions on those committees?
I'm vice chair of elections, but honestly, it doesn't mean a whole lot. Vice chair doesn't.
Okay.
It means that I run the meeting when the chairman goes to the bathroom and stuff.
What do you have that your opponent doesn't have? What do you bring to the table?
Passion. I have a view. I have an idea of what I want government to be and not to be, and I'm very passionate about it. And I know what is right and what is what is wrong based on my principles. And maybe my opponent feels that way about his principles too, but I don't know a whole lot about them really.
As a citizen action group, we believe in citizen participation at every level. How can your constituents help you achieve shared goals? What support do you need?
Well, if we're talking campaign, we need door knockers and social media support. If we're talking in the legislative session, I need people to call. Last time I spoke here, probably 2 years ago, I may have already told this story, but my first year in office, I don't remember what bill it was, I wish I could, but there was a bill that came up, and it was fairly controversial, and my legislative assistant called me and said, "Sir, HB 111, I need to know what your position is immediately." I'm like, "Oh, what's going on?" He was like, "Well, your office phone's been blowing up this morning with people calling in against it. What's your position? I need to know what to tell them." And I was like, blah, 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 blah. And I said, "Well, what do you mean by blowing up?" And he said, "Sir, we've had 12 phone calls this morning." 12 calls makes that big of a fuss in the State House. It doesn't actually take much. I would have certainly assumed that it took hundreds of people to call to get attention, but it doesn't. It takes 12. You get 12 different people, not just the same people over and over again, and preferably if they live in the district, but even if they're outside of the district, you get 12 people to call, you're gonna be on the legislature's radar. So when there's an issue you care about, just pick up the phone. Emails, yeah, but they're not quite as effective as a phone call.
What else do you want voters to know?
That I'll stand by my principles, and I'm accessible, and I need your vote.
Okay. How can voters learn more about you, support your campaign, get in touch with you?
Just search me on social media and contact me there.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.